All right, episode number 20, Bauman's Generation Gap Sports. It's been a full year. We're still live and on the air. Pretty amazing. Today's topic, well, it's March Madness. My opinion, mid-March through mid-April is the best time of year for TV sports. You go right from March Madness into what is arguably one of the most exciting golf tournaments in the world, that being the Masters. Wow. How do you feel about that, Bobby?
Yeah, I'm pumped. I'm got my yearly tradition of having Thursday, Friday off work, so I'll be watching basketball all day long, and then I follow that up with the same thing for the hockey tournament the next week. So doesn't get any better than this.
Pretty sweet. Bob, you've been through a lot of these. Some of these you had to watch from afar, but is this not the best time of year for TV sports?
This is probably one of 2 or 3 peak periods where you just about hit the jackpot. There's that period every fall where you have the intersection of the baseball playoffs, the National Football League, and all kinds of other things happening, college football, and so on and so forth. And it seems like there's always something on. And now you have this period when you've got March Madness and events like the Masters, and you're just about to have college hockey playoffs following, and you've got the National Hockey League, the NBA, baseball warming up to get started. So there's a lot to keep track of.
You know, I would think this year, especially with talking about college basketball again, probably never seen as much parity in the sport as we have right now. There are arguably
Okay.
1, 2, 3 elite teams, some very good teams, and then a whole bunch of other teams, which are like a barrel of monkeys. You just don't know which one is going to surface to the top. Little controversy surrounds that too, in terms of some teams being left out, including some very unhappy conference commissioners complaining that their conferences are not well represented. Nick, what's your take on that?
It's one of the biggest fields in sports. I think, if you wanna make the field, I think there's plenty of opportunity to do that throughout the season. There are a couple teams that maybe got overseeded, like Michigan State. But again, I think take care of business in your 30 odd games in the regular season. And you'll probably have a good shot at being in.
Sure. Virginia and Michigan State. These are two almost blue blood programs at this point in time. Certainly they've got Hall of Fame coaches. They barely squeaked in. Did they get in because of tradition and reputation, or did they earn their way in? Benny, what's your take?
Well, I would say that probably the name brand certainly helps. We'll never know for sure, but I do know when I make my bracket picks, if it's a school I've never heard of, I'm probably not going to choose them. So I think there certainly is always a little bit of favoritism there. So I wouldn't be surprised.
All right, Benny, you are the master when it comes to setting up these brackets, getting people involved. What's your take on this year's tournament? And let us know who you're picking this year. We're excited to hear.
Well, John, I do this every year. People from around the world come and join my bracket challenge, which is called Ben's Super Awesome Bracket Challenge. It's on ESPN. If you want to get in on this, just for those live listeners right now, this is your once in a lifetime opportunity. If you go to ESPN, you type in that bracket challenge name, Ben's Super Awesome Bracket Challenge, and you put in the password, Ben is my hero, because we all need a hero in our lives. You put that in, and then you can join it, and you can be a part of greatness. And once a lifetime opportunity. But yeah, so with my bracket, I decided that, John, you always talk about going bold, and most of the time it doesn't work out, but that's still inspiring that you're willing to keep grinding away at it, like that. And so, this year's a lot of interesting teams out there, but I decided to be somewhat bold. So my final four is going to be Iowa State, North Carolina, Duke, and this school that I think Dorothy got into called Kansas, where I'm from. We're national champions many times now. But I picked Kansas over North Carolina championship, so just stay tuned for that. I'm probably gonna have a perfect bracket, which has never been done, but this is the year. So
That is one of the worst selections of teams, winners I have ever heard of. I don't know what
a
what's
lot
your
of jealousy,
basing, I don't know
John.
you're
A lot of
basing
jealousy.
anything, any of that on. It makes no sense at all. Oh my God.
This perfect bracket. So
It's a
how
perfect
many
bracket.
times do people think the bracket that they choose is going to win? Almost every time, and almost every time it doesn't. And this is the one, because you're not thinking about it, this is the one that's going to work out. So you just wait and see. And I look forward to winning all that money and you laughing, wishing you had my bracket. So
Well, I'm glad this is all being recorded. This will make for some good chatter here in a few weeks.
perfect bracket.
Perfect bracket. Perfect. Not as in winning, maybe, but it's definitely a bracket. Bobby, what's your call?
So, yeah, I mean, I had Kansas in my preseason Final Four, but they really limped to the end of the season, literally and figuratively. I'm not sure if they're even going to be healthy for the tournament. I mean, if everybody's healthy, they certainly have the talent to make a bit of a run, but I don't see them getting to the Final Four under almost any circumstances. I would be really surprised if they do that this year. So my Final Four, I am retaining two teams from my preseason Final Four list. I've made a couple changes. So the two teams I'm keeping are Houston. I think they've had a really impressive season. I mean, they won the Big 12 their inaugural year. Last game of the season, they destroyed KU, beat them by 30. I've never seen KU get blown out that badly. So I got Houston. The other team I'm retaining, which is going to surprise some people, is Michigan State. They were a preseason like top 5, and they have all the talent in the world, and they always seem to do well and overachieve in the tournament. And I think there's a path where they can make another big time run and shock some people. I don't think they're going to win, but I think they can get there. Other two teams are from the SEC. I got Tennessee. They got the best defense in the country, in my opinion. And then Auburn, really deep, really physical. They're going to be a matchup nightmare for anybody. But I got Houston winning the title, retaining my preseason pick there. A lot of talent. This is going to be the season where that meshes together perfectly. So I got Houston winning it all.
I can't argue with Houston. I mean, they're not my choice, but I understand that one. But it's interesting that you would have faith in, say, Kansas, which seems like a pretty soft team this year. I mean, for all the talent that they've got there, they really haven't produced much. They've had a lot of guys with nagging injuries. Kind of hard to see where they're going to go very far. And Michigan State, they were like a preseason top 5, but we saw them in Madison and they got dusted off pretty easily. If there's talent there, it's well hidden. Even though Tom Izzo is arguably one of the best coaches in the history of the Big Ten, I have a hard time seeing Michigan State go very far. Although I'd like them to. I would like to see them make one of those Michigan State runs. So tell us about Michigan State and Kansas. Where are you getting that from?
Well, I don't have Kansas in the Final Four. That was bad. Tennessee was my Tennessee and Auburn are my other two. I see. I mean, I think KU could make the Sweet 16, but I don't see them going much further than that probably. No, I mean, Michigan State, they just have a history of doing this. And if you're going to win the bracket, you got to do something that nobody else is going to do. That is possible, but not necessarily what everybody else is going to be thinking. So Michigan State's kind of my long shot one, and every year, especially these last few seasons, you're seeing higher seeds make long runs. So I mean, last year at FAU, San Diego State in the Final Four, nobody saw that coming. So, so yeah, Michigan State's the only real long shot one probably, but yeah, I think they have what it takes to get there. So.
Nick, every year, as Bobby and commented, there are a lot of surprising games, a lot of strange results, which makes this tournament so much fun. You have a couple upset specials in mind for us this year?
I guess one that comes to mind. I see NC State in terms of Sweet 16 teams. NC State, they won 5 in 5 days to get a bid from the ACC. They're a team I see losing. I guess in the Sweet 16, it's Marquette, but I see them making it to the second weekend. And then McNeese State. I think they're a team who is coached by Will Wade. Like last year they lost 23 games. This year they won 30 plus. So they're kind of fit that profile of the team that I can make a run. I would say James Madison, but as a Wisconsin homer, I'm not picking them, and I'm gonna keep Wisconsin, make it beyond to the second round, beyond from there. But in terms of the Final Four, the Big East got 3 bids in conference, and I've got all 3 in there. And I don't know if that's a strategy or just kind of how the bracket shook out from my perspective, but I think UConn's the best team in basketball. I see them winning over Creighton in the final. But I also have Marquette in there as well. Marquette's got Kolak coming back, like a oblique injury. I've never had an oblique injury. Doesn't sound like it's that big a deal to me. I think he'll be fine. They've been playing well without him. And then, I think Creighton's a really good team as well. So I've got those 3 teams from the Big East, and then North Carolina, a team that didn't make the tournament last year, won it the year before that. Lost to Kansas the year before that. I see them making a run. They're playing really well. They got a lot of experience. So North Carolina, UConn, Marquette, and Creighton. That's my Final Four.
So you commented, Nick, that you don't have Wisconsin going past the second round.
I do.
Wisconsin.
I do.
You have Wisconsin beating Duke.
I've got Wisconsin beating Duke. I think Wisconsin's I think they're a weird 5 seed. I think they could definitely stumble, but their season's been, came out really hot, looking really solid,
right,
really deep, and then somewhere in February, things got scrambled. I think Chucky Hepburn, he kind of lost his role as a piece of the offense, and Max Klesmit, their 2 guard, he kind of cooled down from the heater he was on. So I think they kind of lost their identity. But since you saw the Big Ten tournament, Chucky Hepburn is great. It seemed like all their guys at some point offensively were clicking, and that was despite some injuries. So getting 6 days or 5 days of rest here. They have the last game on Friday, so the last game of the first round. I think rest will be huge. I think they're in position to play above the level of a 5 seed. So I think they're going to beat Duke, and then Houston's not been super solid. I got them beating Houston in Sweet 16. I wouldn't expect that to happen, but I've got it for the pick. I think Wisconsin is if they can get through this first round, James Madison's a tough 12 seed. I think they're in position to really outperform their seeding.
I'm with you. Wisconsin's an interesting team. Getting back to Chucky Hepburn, he's obviously one of the best guards in the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like maybe they celebrated him being more of a distributor than a scorer. And I agree, he kind of lost his scoring touch, but he wasn't looking to score.
Right.
Now you see when the screws are really being turned up on everybody, that guy can play and he can score. And he sets up everybody else much better when he is aggressive. So that makes it an interesting team. I totally agree. They needed a Friday draw. And a late Friday draw is probably all the better. That's a banged up team. You've got 4 guys playing there who are injured right now. They're all injuries that will heal, but they all need some time just to rest. So Wisconsin's an interesting team. I've got them going to the Elite 8. I don't think they'll be the firepower to keep going, but you never know because they've beaten a lot of good teams this year, and they're not afraid of anybody.
Yeah.
And you look at a guy like AJ Storr, He may be one of the most impressive athletes and quickly improving players in the country. He is something else to watch. I don't know if the other Baumann's had a chance to see much at AJ Store, but he brings it to the house. He's amazing. Bob, what do you see going on with the tournament this year?
Well, I'll start by echoing your initial observation. This is a crazy season, incredible parity. I think there are probably a dozen teams, maybe 15 even, that could get hot and win. I personally don't think there are any truly elite teams in the field this year. I think Purdue has been overrated from the very beginning. Although they've got a terrific record, I think they have significant vulnerabilities, just as they showed in the opening round last year. There was every reason in the world to think they were going to win, and they didn't. They couldn't pull it off. And there are days, not too often, but days when Purdue is really vulnerable to an athletic team that is hot shooting. And I think that's, well, through my tortured logical process this year, I actually am predicting that Purdue will win in the end. Because I think they should. I've also got hovering around the top, Houston and North Carolina, Iowa State. I'm going to stick with my preseason underdog surprise picks. Yale's going to go all the way to meet UConn in the third round and beat UConn before Yale disappears. Yale's got a real good starting five. The problem is depth.
Oh my God!
But hey, Princeton did go through 2 rounds last year. Yale should do 3 this year. I also think Drake, whom I gave some credit to in the preseason, is going to be problematic. As for Wisconsin, in my estimation, could actually win the whole thing. If the matchups fall into place and Wisconsin is playing at the top of its game, that's entirely possible. I agree with John. Wisconsin can, on a given day, play with absolutely anybody. The problem is consistency. And that's everybody's problem, I think, in this tournament. So we'll just see. It is going to be fun and full of surprises.
Yeah, let me open this one up to the floor, Bob. You commented on Purdue, and I've got Purdue going to the final, but dropping to UConn. But I will say that they're an interesting team with Zach Edey. The guy is unstoppable. But if you watch some of the Big Ten conference games in the tournament and elsewhere, in Big Ten play, Zach Edey gets the benefit of the whistle constantly. And I don't know if once he gets outside the Big Ten, if referees are going to give him the same latitude in terms of elbowing and pushing and muscling other players around. And if Edey gets in foul trouble, Purdue is very vulnerable. Yeah. So I'm really curious to see how the refs call it. I'm sure at the Big Ten level, they've been talking about this. I'm sounding like a whining hombre. I really try not to be, but I was aghast at some of the calls that Edey got that fouled out Wisconsin's big men. It just blew me away. And when a guy is that big and physical, sometimes I think the refs have a tendency to give him the benefit of the doubt. But if they really study what's just taken place, he doesn't deserve it. So we'll see where they go with Purdue. But anyway, let's open up the floor. Bobby, tell us what else you think is going to happen in the tournament this year.
Yeah, I mean, Minnesota almost beat Purdue at Purdue. So that kind of lessens my confidence in them a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it'll be fun as always. I don't actually have any double-digit seeds making long runs, at least in my bracket. There's probably going to be at least one. There usually is, but I didn't see when Drake seems like it was possible. I could see New Mexico and with Richard Pitino, the old Gopher coach, making a little bit of a run. I certainly have them winning in the first round, but it wouldn't surprise me if they make the Sweet 16. And there's an interesting story out of Long Beach State with their coach, another former Gopher coach, Dan Monson, who actually got fired or they, mutually agreed to part ways before their conference tournament, and then he ends up winning the conference tournament. And so we'll see what happens after this, but they get in, so that's kind of funny. Yeah, so you got a couple former Gopher coaches in, but no actual Gophers or NIT dancing this year. Hoping to follow the Wisconsin recipe from last year, where they made a little NIT run, and maybe we can make some real noise next year.
Do you think your brackets could do better this year than last year, Bobby?
I don't remember how well my bracket did.
Well, it did do well.
Yeah, well, then
You were last place.
then most likely I will. Yeah, a lot of averages.
I don't know. Yeah, don't trust this
That's
guy,
included.
folks. Everyone watching, don't trust those picks. Yeah, follow me. I did better than last, at least. But I do have some hot takes to spice things up here for you guys, just because I feel like there's some cognitive dissonance going on with some of these claims about, especially Wisconsin. Obviously we have some Wisconsin grads and a Yale grad here, so surprise, surprise, we're gonna have some pretty ridiculous picks going. I wouldn't trust any Big Ten team to ever win the championship anytime soon, given it's been over 20 years. So, and Purdue chokes like crazy. I mean, my God, living in Indiana, the number of times I've heard about Purdue being a good team that's going to win the national championship, it's just ridiculous. Again and again and again, choke. Probably going to choke again this year, and we're going to move on. And then that'll be that. In terms of Yale, these guys better not even bring more than a backpack to these games, because they're going right back to Connecticut. I mean, good grief. You think Yale's going to beat UConn? My God, what is going on? This guy, I apologize for our listeners. Obviously, we've had some people under the influence here so far, but like what?
Oh my.
Bob, you want to respond to your son?
Well, Benny doesn't pay actually very close attention to basketball, so he's kind of trying to do this through some kind of telepathic sense of what might happen.
Well, and he's gone. All right.
Yeah, we actually saw Yale
I
live here, which was
Watched a lot of
games.
games. It was really UConn. UConn's been ducking Yale now for about 5 or 6 years since Yale beat them, because they realize now that they have an in-state problem, and they would just as soon that it go away. UConn's a very good team, but UConn is not, unless they catch some breaks, I can't see UConn winning this year. They're always a dangerous team, a lot of dangerous teams in the field this year. So it's kind of a matter of anticipating which way the breaks will run. But there are going to be some elite teams that are going to get some perceived to be elite teams knocked out relatively early, and I think it's going to be a mad scramble.
What's the furthest Yale's gotten in the last 20 years in March Madness?
Second round in.
Second round in, and you have them beating UConn this year.
Yep.
In your bracket.
It shouldn't. It's partly it's set up beautifully.
So you actually put that in your bracket, though. You're not just saying that on here.
Oh no, I picked it in my bracket. Absolutely.
Great. All right. Well, we know who's not winning this year, so okay.
And they did. They took out what, Arizona 4 seed the first game, and beat Missouri by like 25 in the second game.
You're thinking about the top seeds and their vulnerability. Do you think it's really an advantage to be a number 1 seed aside from the theoretical draw? I wonder if psychologically it isn't helpful, because with teams being so even, it really just gives a team, with a lower seed, a little bit more ammunition to get fired up and really go beat the pants off somebody that's favored against them.
Well, I mean, those first 2 rounds, they're getting a kitchen sink from, a 16 seed that is suddenly, I guess, possible as a team that can win that first round, and then an 8 or 9 seed that, if he's not dangerous, can also just throw this thing down. I think we saw last year with Purdue. I think they like throw a press and then just let them shoot threes. You're
Right.
gonna get some kind of weird defense, or something weird's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I think and he's got you're probably gonna be in a place where the crowd's cheering for the other team. I don't know. That's history shows that they're doing better than everybody else. So,
I was really very happy to see that after the Wisconsin James Madison draw was announced, that some of the talking heads were calling for a James Madison upset, because that is exactly what I wanted the Badger players to hear. That they're not a runaway favorite. A lot of people don't believe in them because Wisconsin teams tend to play better when they've got a chip on their shoulder and they've got something to prove. I thought that was great news, because that means basically Wisconsin wins that game, they're going to be underdogs the rest of the way. And I think they just played better that way. But I totally agree with you. Some weird things happen. Some strange defenses pop up. Sometimes there's a bench player who no one's ever heard of, and all of a sudden that player just comes to life. He starts lighting up from 3-point or somewhere. So there's a lot of interesting things that what happen once you get into the tournament.
also, Bob, I think so you're predicting that Yale is going to, I guess, beat Auburn.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't specifically mention that, but that's
Super
right. They start by
underseeded.
beating Auburn.
They're fifth in the net, but a 4 seed. And then
Yeah,
they're gonna beat probably last
Auburn's distracted. They're ticked off.
year's.
They're
Yeah, and then they're probably gonna
They're-
get
Auburn's
Maybe
distracted. They were already whining the other day about being sent to Spokane, making a big deal out of it.
sure.
And they're quite full of themselves, and they're ripe for a surprise.
Well, I guess it would be. I mean, they might have the toughest path to the Elite Eight of anybody on this bracket between Auburn, San Diego State, and UConn. I think that might be a 3-game stretch.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
You gotta believe, Nick. You just gotta have faith.
You're right.
Maybe
Nick,
Auburn's gonna have
Who
some
else
people like.
is going to
become
pick that, right? Yeah.
I guess, yeah. I mean, it sets you up for, if it does happen, probably
If
one.
it does, happen,
seven.
I'm good as gold. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, this is what happens when you start to develop delusion, and this is what happens to your bracket. People live and learn.
Well, Ben, do we have to go through this again? I mean, who has the best record in your tournament of anyone? What's the best single season performance in your tournament?
You do have the best single season.
Yes, thank you.
That's true.
Thank you. Okay, just so we're clear about that.
But it's. I think what happens is I don't think Yale was in the 2021 tournament, were they?
No, they weren't.
This is the problem. What happens with you is whenever a team of yours enters some type of sporting competition, you're just blinded. All of a sudden, you're just completely blind to reality, and you just start picking random things. Oh, Yale's going to win the national championship. Here we go.
Well, you didn't see me pick KU, did you?
You're not. Why would you pick KU? Like, you're not like super loyal to KU. Sure, you'll support them, but you're not gonna.
I'll support them. Hey, I got paychecks from them for years.
Who cares? It doesn't mean anything. I don't see you wearing KU stuff that often. So you usually wear Yale and Dartmouth stuff since you got like a billion outfits that you just wear every day. So.
I do have James Madison beating Wisconsin. So that's my 12th
Why?
upset.
Why?
Because I don't like Wisconsin. That's the main reason. But also,
Well,
James
that's
Madison
forthright.
at the beginning of the season. So they got some fight. I also have a McNeese over Gonzaga. That's my other 12-5.
I didn't pick any 12-5s upsets. None. I
Give
give
me
up
11 fours.
or 12. What?
You have an 11-4 upsets?
I do. I have one. I picked North Carolina State over Texas Tech.
Yeah, me too. I took that one as well.
That was it. I in the past I tend to do too many upsets in the first few rounds. I decided this is not ever working. So now I don't pick giant upsets anymore in the first round. So I only have like 2 or 3 upsets in the entire first round.
Another interesting one. I have Dayton making a run. I got them in the Elite Eight.
Yeah, Dayton can do some damage. I like their draws.
Yep.
It's not too bad. I think Illinois could actually do some damage.
Yes.
Yeah,
You know,
they're
Illinois
the Big Ten team. that I
They're a
think could
hot team
actually
right now.
Win.
Yeah.
They're hot. They have 2 players. They're both first team all conference that are really, really hard to guard.
Doesn't Domask look like the perfect March Madness player?
Yeah, he does. I mean, he's tough as nails. You know, he's big. He's got a little back down jump shot. He backs down his opponent, and then he sort of takes a little half step back and shoots a jumper, and he almost never misses it.
Yeah.
He's a tough player. He's actually a Wisconsin kid. He was Wisconsin Player of the Year, 4 or 5 years ago.
Why did he go to Illinois?
He went to Southern Illinois to begin with.
Oh my.
Okay.
So he was neglected.
He was neglected. No one was interested in him. He didn't have that Big Ten body. Now the story is, and I'm a little hesitant to say this is true, but the story is, and other media, is that he was very interested in attending a school that was much closer to his home for his final year, but Illinois offered him a $500,000 NIL package, which was way more than anybody else had offered up. So that's why he wanted to go to Illinois. That said, he's a great fit for Illinois. He's done well for Illinois, and God bless him.
Interesting.
But anyway, Badger's got AJ Store, so we can't complain too much. Hopefully we get 2 years of AJ Store.
Yeah. It's flame out or win it all, I think. It's kind of what we need.
Talk about flame out for AJ
Flame
Store.
out, yeah, flame out for AJ Store. Early exit or use him for that's all we can keep him for. If he does have a good tournament and he's out of there. He's kind of on the fringe.
Well, right now they don't list him as a lottery pick, but that was before March Madness, right?
Right.
But everybody sees him as a first round pick and a major talent. But he's on such an improvement curve that, I mean, it's who am I to say the guy should turn down millions of dollars, right? But he's on such an improvement curve right now that he could be, he's the kind of guy who could be not only a lottery pick, he could be an all-star in the NBA with just more refinement to his game. He's got to get a better handle. When it comes to ball handling, he's got to improve his defense.
Completely, yeah. But, and I wonder if, obviously Johnny Davis, lottery pick from a couple years ago, hasn't panned out very well so far.
Right.
I wonder if that's any part of consideration, from the NBA. I'm just thinking of ways of, how he should stick around for another year.
Yeah, so am I. It would benefit Wisconsin. I really think it would benefit the kid, but if an NBA team was really patient with him and was willing to send him down to the G League, develop his game some more, then it could work out for him. But I agree, it has not worked out that well for Johnny Davis. But Johnny Davis has some of the same deficiencies in his game. A little bit of a tweener size-wise, not a good ball handler, good defender, but a shooter with great range, but inconsistent. His deficiencies have really shown up at the NBA level. But he was a lottery pick, and he got a lot of money to make that call. So you can't argue with him leaving.
Yeah, I don't think you can blame these guys for taking the opportunity when it's there.
Any other big surprise picks you guys are looking at?
Florida in the Elite Eight.
Florida?
Yep.
I got them bounced by the winner of tonight's UVA Colorado State game.
Well, that's wrong. So you better change that.
Actually, that's wrong. Not UVA Colorado State. Who's Florida playing this first round? Are they getting a play-in matchup? Yeah, Boise,
They're not.
Colorado. I've got them losing to Boise State or Colorado.
What? Oh my gosh. All right. Another busted bracket over here.
Well, they lost one of their best guys.
Who cares, Nick?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. It's Florida. They're gonna be fine. Now they're playing basketball against alligators in their spare time. They can handle Boise or whoever ends up playing them. Then they're gonna beat Marquette, and then they're gonna beat Kentucky, and then they're gonna lose to Duke. But
both Boise State and Colorado have higher net rankings.
doesn't matter. You can't pay attention to that stuff. It's all it's all garbage. Don't pay attention to that, Nick. Come on. Jeez.
Speaking of Kentucky, that's a blue blood program if there ever was one. They've been trying to live and die.
Bye, John. What John was saying is that no one cares about Kentucky because Florida making the Elite Eight's the right pick, and that he also thinks that he just changed his pick actually that Kansas is going to win the national championship as well. So, hi, John. Continue.
No, I was just saying that Kentucky is a blue blood program if there ever was one. They live and die with the one and dones. And they make no bones about it. But that formula has not been working as well. I just want to get you guys' take on. While they're still very competitive, they are not elite like they were 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 years ago. So I was asking your dad what his read was on that.
Well, I wonder if we're on, I guess, year.
That is a little bit of a curiosity.
I would say we're on year 4 of the COVID year. So those young guys are actually younger than they were before, right?
Okay.
Thought.
What?
Well, I'm saying they're relatively younger in the last 4 or 5 years than they have been because they're guys who are playing until they're 23, 24.
Right.
It's just an older sport in the last few years than it has been. So when you have a bunch of 18-year-olds, they're even younger and more experienced.
So you think next year it'll even out a little bit more?
No, I don't think that's the only reason. But I think we're throwing out different corollaries here. That's just an idea. I think that's part of it.
No question. Some teams have really benefited from the COVID extra year. I mean, certainly Illinois has with the mask. That's made a difference. You could argue that Wisconsin's benefited because Tyler Wall got a 5th year. So some of that is going on, especially for teams that maybe don't have as much depth.
I kind of wish I almost wonder, should they keep it? It kind of helps balance out the one and done aspect of things. And you talk about all these guys shift around all the time. Having a guy stay for an extra year.
That's it. What if especially for so many of these schools, some of these guys, either it takes them more than 4 years to graduate, or they want to go to graduate school. I guess you can make an argument. Well, hey, maybe add a 5th year. Bob, what do you think about that?
Just wait till somebody takes this to court.
You're right.
Basically going to become employees. So they should just be able to stay as long as they want, right?
So, Bob, we got to ask you this. Being a Dartmouth guy, obviously the Dartmouth players have voted to unionize. This could be another major disruptor to the health of college sports. How do you feel about that?
I'm not crazy about the Dartmouth unionization. It's almost funny. In fact, I thought it was funny when I first heard about it. And then, of course, in the first round of the NLRB, they were approved, which raises lots of interesting questions about what the heck is an employee. Because these guys aren't even getting athletic scholarships, but that became part of the rationale that they are getting benefits other students don't get. They have trainers and other such stuff. But as a few observers have noted, and in fact, as Dartmouth is going to take this to the top rung of the NLRB and possibly to court, arguing that, hey, if the basketball players are employees, the band members are employees, all kinds of folks in all kinds of extracurriculars are employees.
Right.
And then, since the Ivy League model doesn't require athletic scholarships or anything, in many ways, this would wash across Division III as well as across Division I. You could even start to make arguments about high school. Why shouldn't high school athletes be employees?
Right.
Some of whom are underage, which now creates legal problems.
Or middle
Right.
school.
So
Why not middle schoolers? I was on middle school
well,
team. I didn't get paid at all.
That's right. It's underage exploitation. It's
Child
underage
labor.
exploitation. I mean, they have sort of blown up. They have blown up the conventional boundary about what constitutes an employee. What constitutes or the top rung of the NLRB should sustain this, but since the Dartmouth players already managed to find the atmospherics for unionization are very favorable, and the current administration is very pro-union, and that's trickling down across society.
It's kind of I just don't think I mean, all that aside, which I think is really huge. You bring up sort of a tidal wave of additional ramifications. If I look at the sport, I just think there's just too much of this stuff going on. And at the end of the day, it takes away from the integrity of the game, and it takes away from fan interest. And I just don't see how a lot of these things really in the big picture benefit the people, the student athletes that you'd like to see benefit more. I really don't. I think at some point it just goes too far and things implode.
Yeah, I think Dartmouth should offer them profit share, which would mean they'd all be in debt.
Yeah, I know exactly.
Because Dartmouth basketball
program makes all this money off
$100,000
basketball
a year.
That's baloney.
Yeah,
Dartmouth's not making money off their basketball program.
That's
attendance, what they charge.
That's right.
There's no way. Who are they kidding?
Yeah.
You know, if you want to get paid, at least go up. Just show your stuff and go to Kentucky. They're making some money off that program.
I mean, if this just progresses, I mean, I think probably like the ultimate end of the story is just, a lot of programs being wiped out, and there being kind of like just a few programs left that can field any competitive team, because it's all about, who can pay their players more potentially. And you start getting into this like American baseball type situation where probably all the schools in the deep South are going to be just throwing money at it like crazy because they don't have their own professional sports teams. So that becomes their professional sports teams essentially. And then at some point, 100 years from now, Alabama joins the NFL, becomes an NFL team essentially.
No, it's crazy. It's not to go different direction with college football right now. It is just the total wild, wild west in terms of how players are basically bought to come play. And it's if they don't find a way to regulate that, or to regulate it for the top tier of schools one way and a different way for, say, the next rung down, it's hard to see the long-term viability of college football.
Yeah, you may end up with a salary cap structure at some point, players union, and it's just going to become professional sport.
I would love to see some sort of NIL cap.
Yeah,
I really would. I mean,
there's got to be some sort of structure.
There really does. I mean, it's like I think I mentioned one of our sports casts months back. I've been approached, and it's like I I don't know how you can feel comfortable as to how your money's being spent and who's getting it. And there's some pretty intelligent, thoughtful people working on this issue in Madison. And I tip my hat to them for trying to do something that is responsible and it's still good for the sport, but it's really hard to see where this leads.
Well, I guess the NCAA kind of set themselves up for this disaster by how they've been running things for the last several years. So it seems inevitable that things are going to get out of control now.
Yep, it does seem that way. All right, let's turn the page here a little bit in our closing moments here. Unique things going on in the sporting world. Bob, what's going on out there that catches your eye?
Well, I mentioned this last year, this time, so we can touch it up again. Utah is your NCAA skiing champion. Won the national championship a couple of weeks ago. Turned in a great score. All the usual suspects up near the top. Colorado, Montana State was there. Dartmouth took fourth, had 2 individual NCAA champions. It's comparable to collegiate golf in the way it operates. You know, players go through a series of tournaments, or in the case of skiing, carnivals, as they call them, through the course of the season. And then there's one for their region, and then there's the NCAA championships. So tracking with it is a little bit like golf. Some schools may be able to send only 1 or 2 qualifying competitors. And others will send full squads if they're strong enough. And then whatever happens in the championships is what happens. On the ski slopes, anything can happen on a given day, and the world's best performer, you know, could wipe out and not even factor. So it's intriguing in that sense.
Sure. Bobby, what do you have?
Yeah, college hockey in the midst of finishing up the conference tournaments this weekend, and we'll get the NCAA tournament field picked on Sunday, so that'll be fun. You got Boston College, Boston University, the top 2 ranked teams right now, and you've got North Dakota and Denver closely behind them. Minnesota, Wisconsin, both ranked in the top 10, so should be fun. It's going to be another one of those years, anybody's tournament. Boston College is probably going to be the favorite. They got a ton of talent, but they're also young and inexperienced. So a team like Minnesota that's been around, was in the Frozen Four last year. Obviously, they're going to be real dangerous. Michigan is peaking at the right time, so they're going to be real dangerous. But yeah, it's college hockey. If you get in, you can win. So,
Yeah, no kidding. It's who's hot, who's got a hot goaltender.
Yep.
Okay, Nick.
Well, I guess those of us here and elsewhere that have Kansas going deep in the tournament just reported that Kevin McCullough Jr. is out for the tournament. Knee injury.
Ouch.
So not great to see injuries. That definitely sucks for him and the rest of that team. Yeah, another Kansas tough road this year. Tough sledding. Yeah, I guess that's the less cheerful news.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Now we give our people heads up.
Kind of wish you could change that bracket right now, huh?
No, I'm sticking with it. You know, adversity doesn't matter, because what people don't understand about Kansas is that there's so much freaking talent on that team, because we're Kansas and we have Bill Self who recruits everyone, that even our bench players are probably starting lineup for most of the teams in the tournament. So I don't care. We're still going to win.
Well, I was going to say, I think there's a lot of underperformance going on there.
That's why we got to switch them out. Maybe this is a blessing in disguise.
Could be. Could be.
Kansas looked so pathetic against Houston, it was mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Save the energy for the big dance, Dad. You can't
Maybe.
waste it in these games that don't matter. So
Sure.
Yeah.
So, Benny, you usually have some sort of trivial sport thing that you're focusing on. What's going on?
Well, John, to continue with tradition, because I know you and I discuss this all the time, because I know you're such a big fan. But in terms of MLS news, Major League Soccer, of course, that's what people watch the show.
Notice you had to tell people what that meant, what that stood for.
Well,
I think that speaks volumes right there. Right
think
there.
that,
You're speaking to the masses, and you know that nobody or very few people even know what MLS stands for. But
Well-
thank you for educating the millions of viewers out there. Thank you. I appreciate that, Benny.
Well, John, your generation obviously is kind of stuck in the past, and obviously it's now a more globalized society. We're no longer living in the dinosaur days. You're no longer a hunter-gatherer society. So we're focusing on sports that are actually impacting the world. And there goes John. So, he's back. All right. Anyway, so in terms of MLS, Inter Miami obviously is the team that a lot of people have now heard of. Messi continues to wreak havoc in the league. He's actually got a little injury recently, but Miami continues to win games, especially since they now have Luis Suarez, who's one of the greatest goal scorers of all time. So interesting to see Miami continue to do well. And in addition to that, you have the Columbus Crew, who won the championship last season. That's also doing well. But in other good news, Sporting Kansas City, where I'm from, is undefeated, though they've won only one game, but they've tied like 3 times. So just goes to show, you don't lose, and it doesn't matter.
That's profound. That is profound. We should just end the show on that note.
I figured that's why you saved me flat.
All right, guys. There's another great episode. We'll be getting back to our millions and millions of viewers out there with news on the basketball tournament, maybe a little soccer news. We'll see. Thanks, everybody.